What would you do if the person who stole your life's work was about to sign the deal that would make them a billionaire? My former business partner is currently shaking hands with investors, celebrating the acquisition of the AI platform I created in my basement. She thinks the contract on that table will make her unstoppable. She doesn't know that embedded in the code she's selling is a countdown timer. She believes she won. In reality, she just sold a ticking time bomb. By the time the champagne goes flat, she won't be a tech genius. She'll be a cautionary tale. If you're reading this, tell me where you're from or drop just one word in the comments. The champagne was Dom Perignon, 2008. I knew because I had ordered it 6 months ago for this exact day. The day we were supposed to celebrate our Series B funding together. Now it sat in crystal flutes on the glass table of the penthouse conference room that used to be ours. Victoria stood at the head of the table, her burgundy blazer perfectly tailored, her smile radiant and rehearsed. The venture capitalists from Apex Investments surrounded her like disciples. Rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the San Francisco high-rise, but inside, everything was warm, celebratory, victorious. Next to Victoria sat Derek Chun, her new technical co-founder. His laptop was open, displaying the dashboard of MindBridge, the AI mental health platform I had spent 4 years building. The algorithm that could predict depressive episodes before they happened. The neural network that had saved 17 lives in our beta test alone. My life's work. Elena, Victoria said, finally acknowledging me standing in the doorway. Her voice dripped with false sympathy. I'm glad you could make it. I wanted you to hear this directly from me. I walked into the room slowly. My sneakers squeaked against the marble floor, a sharp contrast to Victoria's designer heels. I was still wearing my hoodie, the one with coffee stains on the sleeve. I looked exactly like what they wanted me to look like, the technical genius who couldn't handle the business side. Effective today, Victoria continued, addressing both me and the investors, we're restructuring MindBridge's ownership. Elena will be transitioning to an advisory role. Advisory, I repeated flatly. That's what we're calling it. One of the investors, a silver-haired man named Richard Blackwell, cleared his throat. Ms. Torres, you'll retain a small equity stake. 5%. And a generous consulting fee for the next year. 5%, I said. I didn't sit down. Of the company I founded. The algorithm I wrote. The patients I recruited. Victoria's smile tightened. Elena, you're brilliant. Everyone knows that. But brilliance isn't enough to scale a company. We need vision. Leadership. Market strategy. She gestured to Derek. Derek has experience. He took 2 startups to acquisition. We need that expertise if we're going to reach our potential. Derek's last startup was a recipe app, I said. He sold it for parts after it failed. Derek's jaw clenched, but Victoria touched his arm, a gesture of ownership that made my stomach turn. This is why we're making this change, Victoria said softly, as if explaining something to a child. You're too emotional, Elena. Too attached. The board has concerns about your stability. The board, I said. You mean the board you assembled after you convinced me to give you equal voting rights? The board packed with your friends. Richard Blackwell stood up. Ms. Torres, we appreciate everything you've contributed. But the decision is final. Sign the transition agreement, or we'll be forced to exercise the termination clause in your contract. He slid a leather portfolio across the table. I opened it. The header read, MindBridge Innovations Voluntary Transition Agreement. Voluntary. The word was a knife. There's also this, Victoria said. She reached under the table and pulled out a worn backpack. My backpack. The one I'd used during the early days, working 20-hour shifts in my apartment, surviving on instant ramen and coffee. We cleaned out your desk, Victoria explained. Your personal items. Thought you'd want your old laptop, the one from the beginning. We wiped the company data, of course, but you can keep it. For memories. She pushed the backpack across the table with the same patronizing smile. I stared at the backpack. Inside was my old ThinkPad, the laptop where I'd written the first iteration of MindBridge's prediction algorithm, where I'd trained the initial neural network using my own therapy sessions as data points after my brother's suicide. Victoria thought she was giving me garbage. A relic. A consolation prize for the woman she was erasing. She had no idea she was handing me the key to her destruction. That's generous, I said quietly. I picked up the pen. My hand was steady. I signed my name on the line. The ink was permanent, black as a bruise. Victoria exhaled in relief. You're making the right choice, Elena. You'll see. In a year, you'll thank me. You can finally rest. Travel. Get therapy. Therapy, I echoed. I capped the pen and set it down with a soft click. Speaking of therapy, does Apex Investments know that you've been inflating our user numbers? That 40% of our active users are bot accounts you created to impress investors. The room went silent. Victoria's smile froze. That's a ridiculous accusation. Is it? I picked up the backpack. Because the audit logs are pretty clear. Unless you're telling these gentlemen that MindBridge suddenly gained 10,000 users in Taiwan, a market we don't operate in, all signing up with sequential email addresses. Richard Blackwell's eyes narrowed. Victoria? She's lying, Victoria said quickly. She's upset. She's making things up to sabotage the deal. Am I? I met her eyes. Then you won't mind showing them the back-end analytics. The real ones. Not the dashboard Derek designed. Derek shifted uncomfortably. Victoria's face flushed. Elena, don't do this. Don't burn bridges. Bridges? I said softly. Victoria, I'm not burning bridges. I'm burning the whole city. I turned and walked toward the door. Security. Victoria called out. Don't let her leave with that laptop. But I was already gone, the backpack slung over my shoulder, my footsteps echoing down the hallway. Behind me, I heard Richard Blackwell's voice, cold and sharp. Victoria, I think we need to have a conversation. Privately. I didn't look back. I stepped into the elevator, pulled out my phone, and entered a 12-digit code into a hidden app. Execute. Protocol Nightingale. The countdown began. 8 hours. Enjoy the champagne, Victoria, I whispered as the elevator doors closed. It's the last celebration you'll ever have. The rain was cold against my face as I stood on the street below the high-rise. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I stood there, backpack on my shoulders, and watched. Through the glass lobby, I could see the receptionist, a young guy named Marcus who always complimented my code reviews, suddenly stand up from his desk. He picked up his phone, looked at it, then picked up the landline. He slammed it down. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Protocol Nightingale wasn't a virus. It wasn't ransomware. It was something far more elegant and far more cruel. It was the truth. For 2 years, I had embedded a secondary logging system into MindBridge's core infrastructure. Every transaction, every user interaction, every backend modification, all of it was being recorded in an encrypted partition that only I could access. Victoria didn't know it existed. Derek certainly didn't. But more than that, I had built in a fail-safe. If my admin access was ever revoked without my personal authorization code, the system would assume a hostile takeover was in progress, and it would respond accordingly. The system had just been triggered. I watched as the massive digital display in the lobby, the one that usually showed soothing nature scenes and MindBridge's mission statement, flickered. Then it turned red. System audit in progress. Fraud detection protocol active. Inside the glass fishbowl of the lobby, Marcus grabbed his tablet and started running toward the elevators. A woman in a business suit nearly collided with him, both of them pointing at their screens. My phone buzzed again. And again. A continuous vibration. I pulled it out. 73 missed calls. 15 from Victoria. 20 from Derek. The rest from board members and investors. I let them ring. Protocol Nightingale had just locked every administrator out of the system. Every password expired. Every biometric skin rejected. And because the system detected what it interpreted as fraudulent activity, the fake user accounts, the inflated metrics, it had automatically flagged the company for regulatory review. But that wasn't the beautiful part. The beautiful part was that it had sent a complete audit report to 3 places: the Securities and Exchange Commission, the California Department of Business Oversight, and every single email address in our investor database, including the journalists at TechCrunch who had been sniffing around our Series B announcement. I watched as a black SUV pulled up to the front entrance. 2 people in suits got out. Federal agents, probably. That was faster than I expected. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized, Richard Blackwell. I answered. Ms. Torres. His voice was ice. What have you done? I built a system that tells the truth, I said calmly. Victoria spent 2 years lying to you. I spent 2 years documenting those lies. The system just delivered the evidence. You've destroyed the company. Do you understand that? We just lost $40 million in valuation. You were about to invest 40 million in fraud, I corrected. I saved you from that. You're welcome. The SEC is here. They're seizing servers. They want to talk to you. I'm sure they do. Tell them I'm available. Unlike Victoria, I have nothing to hide. I hung up. A news van pulled up. Then another. The media had the scent. I walked 3 blocks to Blue Bottle Coffee, ordered an Americano, and sat by the window. I pulled out the old ThinkPad from my backpack. Victoria had wiped it. She was thorough, I'd give her that. But she'd forgotten that I built this machine myself. I'd installed a hidden partition at the hardware level, accessible only through a specific boot sequence. I held down 3 keys while powering on. The screen flickered to life, showing a bare-bones Linux terminal. Nightingale Archive active. Node status. Patient database. Locked, awaiting admin override. Financial records. Exported, sent to SEC. Communications log. Exported, sent to SEC. User analytics. Locked, fraud flag active. I typed a command, monitor only. The screen filled with real-time logs. I could see everything happening inside Mindbridge servers. The panic was spreading like wildfire. The support phones would be ringing off the hook, but no one could answer because the VoIP system ran through the central server, which currently thought every employee was an unauthorized user trying to breach security. Rough day? The barista asked, refilling my coffee. You have no idea, I said. The TV mounted in the corner of the cafe switched to breaking news. Tech scandal. AI mental health startup under federal investigation. A reporter stood outside the Mindbridge building. Behind her, I could see agents carrying boxes of equipment. Then Victoria's face appeared on screen. It was a hastily arranged press conference in the lobby. She looked composed, but I could see the tension in her jaw. This morning, Victoria said to the cameras, we terminated our former CTO, Elena Torres, due to erratic behavior and breaches of protocol. Regrettably, it appears Ms. Torres initiated a retaliatory attack on our systems. I gripped my coffee cup. Furthermore, Victoria continued, her voice steady, our preliminary investigation has uncovered evidence that Ms. Torres may have been selling user data, highly sensitive mental health information, to third-party brokers. We believe this attack is an attempt to cover her tracks. My blood went cold. Selling user data? Mental health records? She was accusing me of the worst crime a health tech founder could commit. HIPAA violations. Exploitation of vulnerable patients. If that accusation stuck, I wouldn't just lose my company. I'd lose my license, my reputation, my freedom. My phone rang. It was Dr. Sarah Chun, the therapist who'd helped me design Mindbridge's clinical protocols. The woman who'd believed in me after my brother died. Elena. Her voice was shaking. Tell me it's not true. Tell me you didn't sell patient data. Sarah, I would never. The news is saying you did. Victoria sent me server logs. Transfers from your IP address to offshore accounts. Elena, if this is real, I have to report you to the licensing board. It's fabricated, I said, my voice rising. Sarah, you know me. You know I would never. I don't know what I know anymore, she said quietly. I have patients who trusted us. If their data was compromised. She hung up. I stared at my phone. Victoria wasn't just trying to fire me. She was trying to obliterate me. The door to the cafe opened. 2 men in dark suits walked in. They scanned the room. Their eyes landed on me. FBI. I had 2 choices, run or face them. I closed the laptop. I stood up. I walked toward them. Elena Torres? The taller agent asked. That's me. We need you to come with us. We have questions about Mindbridge innovations. Am I under arrest? Not yet, but we'd like your cooperation. I looked at the TV screen behind them. Victoria was still talking to reporters, playing the victim, the betrayed founder. I'll cooperate, I said. But first, I need to show you something. The FBI field office in San Francisco smelled like burnt coffee and printer toner. They put me in an interrogation room with gray walls and a metal table. The kind of room designed to make you feel guilty, even if you're innocent. Agent Reeves sat across from me. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with her hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her partner, Agent Morrison, stood by the door, arms crossed. Ms. Torres, Reeves began, sliding a folder across the table. Let's talk about these server logs. I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of database queries, transfers of user records, IP addresses, timestamps, all of them traced back to my admin account. These logs show you accessed patient records between midnight and 3 a.m. over the course of 6 months, Reeves said. 2,000 records. Exported to an encrypted partition. Then transferred to offshore servers in Romania. I studied the logs carefully. They looked real. The timestamps were accurate. The IP addresses matched my home network. Even the database queries used my syntax, my coding style. Victoria had done her homework. It's fake, I said. Fake. Morrison scoffed from the doorway. That's your defense? It's spoofed, I clarified. Someone with admin access created these logs to frame me. Look at the timestamp on this one. I pointed to a line dated 3 weeks ago. January 14th, 2:47 a.m. I was in Seattle that night, speaking at a mental health tech conference. I have hotel records, airline tickets, witnesses. Reeves made a note. That doesn't prove these logs are false. You could have automated the transfers. I could have, I agreed. But I didn't. And I can prove it. I reached for my backpack. Morrison's hand went to his holster. Relax, I said. It's just a laptop. I pulled out the old ThinkPad and set it on the table. This is the original development machine for MindBridge, I explained. It contains the source code, the uncompiled version, with cryptographic signatures proving I wrote it. It also contains something Victoria doesn't know exists, a complete audit trail. Reeves leaned forward. What kind of audit trail? When I built MindBridge, I knew I was handling sensitive data. Lives were at stake. So I built in a failsafe, a hidden logging system that records every single action taken on the platform. Every database query, every file access, every administrator command. It's immutable. Once something is logged, it can't be edited or deleted. I opened the laptop. The screen glowed with the terminal interface. These logs Victoria gave you? I continued, typing commands. They were created using admin privileges, but they're not in the immutable log. That means they were fabricated after the fact and inserted into the visible database. The screen filled with data. Rows and rows of timestamped entries. Here, I said, rotating the laptop so they could see. January 14th, 2:47 a.m. According to the immutable log, the only activity from my account that night was an automated backup script. No database access. No patient records exported. Nothing. Reeves studied the screen. How do we know this log is legitimate? Cryptographic hashing, I said. Every entry is hashed and chained to the previous entry, like a blockchain. If anyone tries to modify or insert a fake entry, the hash chain breaks. See this? I pointed to a string of characters. This is the hash signature for the entire log. It's been verified against backups stored on 3 separate servers, including one managed by our HIPAA compliance auditor. Morrison stepped closer. So you're saying someone at MindBridge created fake logs to frame you? Not just someone, I said. Victoria Cole. She has the technical knowledge and the access. And she has the motive. What motive? Reeves asked. She's been committing investor fraud, I said. Inflating user numbers, fabricating engagement metrics. Protocol Nightingale, the system lockdown, exposed that fraud. The SEC has the evidence now. Victoria needed to shift blame, discredit me before I could defend myself. What better way than to accuse me of the worst crime in health tech? Reeves and Morrison exchanged a look. If what you're saying is true, Reeves said slowly, we need to verify this immutable log. We'll need to bring in a forensic analyst. I can save you time, I said. Contact Dr. Marcus Huang at Stanford. He's a cybersecurity expert who helped me design the logging system. He can verify the integrity of the hash chain. Reeves stood up. Wait here. They left the room. The door locked behind them with a heavy click. I sat alone in the gray room, staring at my laptop screen. The countdown timer was still running. 5 hours, 23 minutes, and 17 seconds. 5 hours until Victoria's deal closed. 5 hours until she walked away with everything. I couldn't let that happen. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Reeves walked in with a tablet. We spoke to Dr. Huang, she said. He confirmed your story. The hash chain is legitimate. The logs Victoria provided were fabricated. Relief flooded through me, but I kept my face neutral. However, Reeves continued, sitting down, that doesn't clear you completely. We still need to understand why MindBridge's system locked down. Why it flagged the company for fraud. That was your doing, wasn't it? Yes, I admitted. But not as sabotage. I built Protocol Nightingale as a failsafe. If anyone attempted to remove me from the system without proper authorization, my personal security code. The system would interpret it as a hostile takeover and lock down to protect user data. And send evidence to the SEC? Only if it detected fraudulent activity, I said. Which it did. Victoria's fake user accounts, her manipulated metrics, all of that triggered the fraud detection algorithms. The system did exactly what it was designed to do: protect patients and expose threats. Morrison leaned against the wall. So you built a dead man's switch. I built insurance, I corrected. And it turns out I needed it. Reeves tapped her pen against the table. Ms. Torres, I believe you. But here's the problem. Victoria Cole has a very expensive legal team, and they're already spinning this as a disgruntled employee attack. Even if we arrest her for fraud, she'll argue that you orchestrated this whole thing as revenge. Then I need to prove she's been planning this, I said. And I know how. I turned the laptop back around and typed rapidly. Victoria made a mistake, I explained. She thinks she deleted all evidence of her fraud, but she didn't account for the metadata. Every time she or Derek modified the database to inflate numbers, the system logged not just what changed, but when, where, and from which device. The screen displayed a map. Red dots appeared across San Francisco. These are the locations where the fraudulent entries originated, I said. Victoria's apartment. Derek's condo. This one is a coffee shop in Nob Hill, where they met 3 months ago. And this. I zoomed in on a cluster of dots. This is a server farm in Nevada. A shell company called Apex Data Solutions. Reeves frowned. What's significant about that? Apex Data Solutions is owned by Richard Blackwell, I said. The lead investor. Victoria wasn't just committing fraud to make the company look good. She was doing it in partnership with the investor. They were inflating the numbers together so they could sell to a bigger fish at a massive markup. That's conspiracy to commit securities fraud, Morrison said. Exactly. I pulled up another file. And here's the evidence. Email chains between Victoria and Blackwell. Calendar invites. Wire transfers from Blackwell's personal account to Victoria's offshore LLC. They've been planning this for 8 months. Reeves took the laptop and scrolled through the evidence. Her expression hardened. Where did you get these emails? The immutable log, I said. It doesn't just record database activity. It records all company communications routed through our servers. Victoria thought she was using encrypted email. She didn't realize the encryption happened after the log captured the message. Reeves looked at Morrison. He nodded. Ms. Torres, Reeves said, standing up. You're free to go. We'll need you to testify, but for now, you're not a suspect. You're a witness. What about Victoria? We're issuing a warrant for her arrest. And for Richard Blackwell. I closed the laptop. How long will that take? A few hours. Maybe less. That's not fast enough, I said. Victoria's deal closes at 6 p.m. If she signs those papers before you arrest her, she'll transfer the money offshore and disappear. You'll never find her. Reeves crossed her arms. What are you suggesting? Let me go back, I said. Let me stop the deal. Buy you time to make the arrest. Absolutely not. She thinks I'm hiding, I interrupted. She thinks I'm scared. If I show up at that office, she'll panic. She'll make mistakes. And you'll have everything you need to put her away for 20 years. Morrison shook his head. Too risky. If she's desperate enough to frame you for data theft, she's desperate enough to do something violent. Then come with me, I said. Wire me. Record everything. When she tries to cover her tracks, you'll have her on tape. Reeves considered this. Finally, she nodded. All right, but you follow our lead. No heroics. No heroics, I agreed. 3 hours, 15 minutes, and 42 seconds. 3 hours until the deal closed. 3 hours to take back everything Victoria stole. The wire was smaller than I expected. Agent Morrison taped it to my chest, just below my collarbone, hidden beneath my hoodie. Don't touch it, he instructed. Don't adjust your clothing. Act natural. Natural, I repeated, while walking into a building where everyone thinks I'm a criminal. We'll be in a van 2 blocks away, Reeves said. You get Victoria talking. Get her to admit to the fraud, the frame-up, anything. The moment we have enough, we move in. What if she doesn't talk? Then improvise. But remember, no heroics. You're not a cop. I nodded. They gave me an earpiece, nearly invisible, tucked into my ear canal. Testing. Reeves' voice came through crystal clear. Can you hear me? Loud and clear. Good. You have 2 hours before the deal closes. Make them count. I stepped out of the van and onto the San Francisco street. The rain had stopped, but the pavement was still slick. The Mine Bridge building loomed ahead, glass and steel reflecting the gray sky. The lobby was chaos. Employees stood in clusters, talking in hushed, panicked voices. Security guards watched the doors. News crews lingered outside, waiting for a statement. I walked through the revolving doors. The receptionist, Marcus, looked up. His eyes went wide. "Elena? What are you? You can't be here." "Security will." "I need to see Victoria," I said calmly. "Tell her I'm here to make a deal." Marcus grabbed his phone, but before he could dial, the elevator doors opened. Victoria stepped out. She was flanked by Derek and two men I didn't recognize. Private security, judging by their builds and the way they scanned the room. Victoria stopped when she saw me. For a split second, genuine surprise crossed her face. Then her expression hardened. "Elena," she said coldly, "I was wondering when you'd surface. Did the FBI let you go, or did you slip away?" "They let me go," I said, "because I showed them proof. Proof that you fabricated the data theft logs." Victoria's jaw tightened. Around us, employees stopped talking. The lobby went silent. "I don't know what you're talking about," Victoria said carefully. "Yes, you do." I took a step forward. "You created fake server logs to make it look like I was selling patient data. You planted them in the system after you fired me. But you made a mistake, Victoria. You forgot about the immutable audit trail." Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Victoria, what is she talking about?" "She's delusional," Victoria snapped. "Elena, you need to leave. Now, before I have security remove you." "Go ahead," I said. "Call them. Call the police too. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your partnership with Richard Blackwell. About the shell company in Nevada. About how you've been inflating user numbers for 8 months to commit securities fraud." Victoria's face went pale. "That's slander," she said, but her voice wavered. "It's evidence," I corrected. I pulled out my phone and held it up. On the screen was an email chain between Victoria and Blackwell, discussing fake user accounts. "This is from your encrypted email. You thought you deleted it. You didn't." The security guards looked at each other, uncertain. One of the employees, a developer named Priya, spoke up. "Is this true? Victoria, have you been faking our numbers?" "Of course not," Victoria said quickly. She turned to Derek. "Derek, tell them. Tell them this is insane." But Derek was staring at the phone screen. "Victoria, those email addresses. That's you and Richard." "Derek, don't be stupid." "I helped you build the fake accounts," Derek said, his voice rising. "You told me it was just to smooth out the metrics for the pitch. You said it was temporary. You didn't tell me you were committing fraud." Victoria's composure cracked. "Derek, shut up. Right now." "No." Derek stepped back. "I'm not going to prison for you." The elevator dinged. The doors opened and Richard Blackwell stepped out, flanked by 2 lawyers. He stopped when he saw me. "Ms. Torres," he said icily, "I thought you'd be in custody." "Change of plans," I said. "The FBI is more interested in you and Victoria now." Blackwell's eyes narrowed. He looked at Victoria. "What is she talking about?" "She's bluffing," Victoria said desperately. "Richard, don't listen to her. The deal is still on. We sign in 90 minutes, and this all goes away." "Does it?" I asked. I turned to Blackwell. "Did Victoria tell you about Protocol Nightingale? The system lockdown? It didn't just expose the fake users. It logged every communication between you two. Every wire transfer. Every meeting. The SEC has it all." Blackwell's face turned to stone. He looked at Victoria. "You told me your systems were secure." "They were," Victoria stammered. "She sabotaged." "I built fail-safes," I interrupted, "to protect the company from people like you." Blackwell turned to his lawyers. "Get me out of here. Now." "Richard, wait." Victoria reached for him, but he jerked away. "Don't touch me," he hissed. "This partnership is over. My lawyers will be in touch to discuss liability." He walked toward the exit. The doors opened, and he stepped out, directly into the arms of FBI agents. "Richard Blackwell," Agent Reeves said, holding up her badge. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit securities fraud." Blackwell's lawyers immediately started shouting about rights and warrants, but the agents were already cuffing him. Inside the lobby, Victoria stood frozen. Her face was white, her hands trembling. "Victoria Cole," Agent Morrison said, walking through the doors with 2 more agents. "You're also under arrest." "No," Victoria said, backing away. "No, this is a mistake. I didn't do anything wrong." She's the one, she pointed at me. Elena did this. She sabotaged the company. She framed me. Ms. Cole, Reeves said, approaching slowly, we have the evidence. The real logs. The emails. The wire transfers. It's over. Victoria's eyes darted around the lobby, looking for an escape. She saw the stairwell door. She ran. Suspect is fleeing. Morrison shouted. The agents gave chase. I ran too, ignoring Reeves' voice in my earpiece telling me to stay back. Victoria burst through the stairwell door and started climbing. I followed, my sneakers pounding on the concrete steps. Victoria, stop! I shouted. She didn't stop. She kept climbing floor after floor, her heels clicking frantically. We reached the 10th floor. Victoria shoved through the door into the executive offices, the floor I'd been banned from this morning. I followed her into the conference room, the same room where she'd fired me. The champagne glasses were still on the table, now empty. Victoria spun around, her face flushed, mascara smudged. You destroyed everything, she said, her voice breaking. We built this together, Elena. We were supposed to be partners. We were partners, I said, until you decided you wanted it all for yourself. You don't understand business. Victoria screamed. You don't understand what it takes to scale a company, to attract investors. Your precious morals would have kept us small forever. My morals kept us honest, I said. We were helping people, Victoria. Real people with real problems. People like my brother. Victoria laughed bitterly. Your brother. You always brought him up. Like his suicide gave you some moral authority. It didn't. It just made you sentimental. Weak. The words hit like a physical blow. Weak. I said quietly. Yes. Weak. You couldn't make the hard decisions. You couldn't do what needed to be done. So I did it. And I would have succeeded if you hadn't sabotaged everything with your stupid protocol. I didn't sabotage anything, I said. I built a system that tells the truth. You sabotaged yourself the moment you decided to lie. The door burst open. Agents Morrison and Reeves entered, guns drawn. Ms. Cole, Reeves said. It's over. Put your hands up. Victoria looked at me one last time. You think you've won? You'll never run another company. No one will trust you after this. I made sure of that. Maybe, I said. But I'll sleep at night. Can you say the same? Victoria didn't answer. She put her hands up. Agent Morrison cuffed her. As they led her away, she looked back at the conference room, at the table, the windows, the view of the city she'd tried so hard to conquer. Then she was gone. I stood alone in the silent room. Through the window, I could see the city lights beginning to flicker on as evening approached. My phone buzzed. A notification. Protocol Nightingale. System restored. Administrator access. Elena Torres. The building was mine again. 6 months later, the office looked completely different. I'd torn down the glass walls of the executive suite. No more corner offices, no more hierarchy. My desk was in the middle of the floor, surrounded by developers, designers, and therapists working together. We called it the Transparency Initiative. The recovery had been brutal. 3 major clients left after the scandal. Investors pulled out. The board dissolved. For 2 weeks, I wasn't sure if MindBridge would survive. But then something unexpected happened. Patients started reaching out. Real people whose lives had been changed by our platform. A mother whose daughter's suicide attempt was prevented because MindBridge predicted the crisis. A veteran who found hope through our AI-assisted therapy. A teenager who finally got help because our algorithm flagged warning signs their parents had missed. They organized. They created a crowdfunding campaign. They wrote op-eds. They testified to regulators about how MindBridge had saved their lives. Within a month, we'd raised $4 million from 15,000 individual donors. Not venture capital. Not rich investors. Real people who believed in what we were building. Dr. Sarachin came back. So did most of the original team. We rebuilt. Stronger. More transparent. More honest. I walked into the conference room where the new board was waiting. All patients' advocates, mental health professionals, and ethicists. No more venture capitalists looking for a quick exit. Elena, Dr. Chin said, standing to shake my hand. Quarterly report looks incredible. User numbers are up 40%. Real users this time. Real users, I echoed, smiling. What a concept. And the SEC investigation? Another board member asked. Closed, I said. Victoria and Blackwell both pleaded guilty. Victoria got 7 years for securities fraud and identity theft. Blackwell got 12 for conspiracy and money laundering. Derek cooperated with prosecutors, so he got probation. The room was silent for a moment. It's really over, Dr. Chen said softly. No, I said, sitting down at the head of the table, not a power position, just a seat. It's really beginning. I opened my laptop. Not the old ThinkPad. That was in a museum now, a reminder of where we'd started. This was new, fast, powerful. But on my desk, I kept a small object. A stress ball shaped like a brain, given to me by one of our patients who credited MindBridge with saving their life. Now, I said, pulling up the presentation, let's talk about the future. We have 17,000 people waiting for access to our platform. We have 3 hospitals ready to partner with us. And we have something no other mental health AI company has: trust. Dr. Chen smiled. Because we earned it. Because we earned it, I agreed. I didn't need to look out the window to know the view was beautiful. I'd built something real this time. Something that couldn't be stolen or corrupted or destroyed by greed. Something that mattered. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's proving they were wrong about you. Victoria thought I was too weak, too sentimental, too moral to succeed. She thought caring about people was a liability. She was wrong. Today, MindBridge helps 5,000 people every day. We've prevented 42 suicides. We've connected thousands of people to the help they needed. We've made mental health care accessible, affordable, and shame-free. My brother would have been proud. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing. Drop a comment below, even just one word. Tell me where you're from, what time it is, or what this story made you feel. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here. And sometimes being here, bearing witness, is all it takes to change everything.